My name is Abigail Turner. For 63 years, I told people my family died in an accident. That was a lie, not because I knew the truth, but because I was afraid of it. I was 14 years old when the fire happened. 77 when I finally learned something that made me question everything I thought I remembered, and 82 when I decided to tell this story. By the time you hear these words, I may already be gone. But the questions that have haunted me my entire life deserve to be heard. I was born in 1841 on a small farm outside Ashford. My father was a carpenter. My mother made dresses for the women in town. I had two brothers, Samuel and Henry, and a younger sister named Clara. We were not wealthy, but we had enough food, enough laughter, enough hope. When I remember my childhood, I remember summer evenings. My father sitting on the porch carving small wooden animals. My mother singing while she sewed. The smell of bread cooling by the window. The sound of Clara chasing fireflies through the yard. For many years, I believed those memories belonged to someone else, someone luckier than me, because everything ended on the night of October 17, 1855. I remember the wind first, strong enough to shake the trees. Strong enough to whistle through cracks in the walls. The adults worried about storms, but no storm came. Instead, something far worse arrived. I woke sometime after midnight. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The room glowed orange. Smoke drifted across the ceiling. Then I heard my mother's scream, not a frightened scream, a terrified one, the kind that freezes your blood. I jumped from bed. The hallway was already filling with smoke. I could hear Clara crying. My father shouting, wood cracking. The heat felt unnatural, like opening an oven large enough to swallow the entire world. I ran toward the stairs. That was when I saw my father. He was trying to open the front door, pulling, yanking, throwing his shoulder against it, but it wouldn't move. Even then, I didn't understand. I thought panic had made him clumsy. Then he shouted words I have never forgotten. It's locked. At 14 years old, I didn't think much about that sentence. I was too afraid, too confused, too desperate to survive. The fire spread unbelievably fast, faster than any fire should. Within minutes, flames were racing across the walls. My father grabbed me. His face looked different, not frightened. Certain as if he already knew what was about to happen. Go through the window. What about Clara? His eyes filled with tears. To this day, I wish I had never seen that expression, because it was the face of a man saying goodbye. Go, he pushed me toward the bedroom. I remember resisting, screaming, trying to run back. Then a beam crashed from the ceiling. Sparks exploded around us. The room shook, and suddenly my father was gone behind a wall of fire. I climbed through the window. I fell into mud. I remember looking up. The entire house was burning. Orange flames poured from every opening. Smoke swallowed the stars. I could hear screams inside, my mother's, my sister's, maybe my brother's. I cannot be certain. The memory changes every time I revisit it. Some nights I hear all of them. Other nights I hear only silence. Neighbors arrived carrying buckets, but everyone knew it was hopeless. The fire had already won. As I stood barefoot in the yard while everything I loved disappeared. The next morning, 4 bodies were recovered. My mother, Samuel, Henry, Clara, my father's body was never found. People assumed the fire had destroyed it completely. That explanation satisfied everyone except me, because even as a child I thought it was strange. How could an entire body vanish? Why only his, yet nobody questioned it? Life moved forward, or at least it pretended to. As I moved in with my aunt, the townspeople called me fortunate, the sole survivor, the lucky one. I hated that word, lucky. There was nothing lucky about waking up screaming every night, nothing lucky about smelling smoke that wasn't there. Nothing lucky about wondering whether I should have gone back inside. For years I carried guilt like a stone tied around my neck. Why had I survived? Why not Clara? Why not my mother? Why not my father? Those questions followed me into adulthood. Then something happened that changed everything. It happened 63 years later, and it began with a letter addressed in handwriting I had never seen before. A letter containing only 11 words. The doors were locked from the outside. Ask who owned the key. That was all, no signature, no explanation, just 11 words. 11 words that destroyed 63 years of certainty. Because if the doors were locked from the outside, then the fire had never been an accident, and someone had wanted my family trapped inside. The letter arrived in the spring of 1918. I remember staring at it for nearly an hour before opening it. At first, I thought it was some cruel joke. People have always enjoyed tormenting survivors, especially old survivors, but something about those words felt different. The doors were locked from the outside. Ask who owned the key. For weeks I carried the letter everywhere. I showed it to no one, not because I doubted it, because I feared it. As if the letter was true, then every memory I had built my life upon rested on a lie. One morning I opened an old wooden chest containing the few belongings saved from my childhood. Photographs, a Bible, a pocket watch that had belonged to my father, and beneath them something I had not examined in decades, a newspaper clipping from the week after the fire. As I reread the article, one sentence caught my attention. A sentence I had overlooked for 63 years. The front entrance was found secured after the blaze. Secured, not jammed, not damaged, secured. My hands began to shake. The reporter had noticed. The evidence had always been there. Nobody had questioned it, including me. Over the following months, I began investigating. Most people involved were dead, but records remained, memories remained, and secrets I discovered often outlive the people who create them. Though the first suspect was obvious, a neighbor named Walter Briggs. My father and Walter had argued constantly during the years before the fire. Land disputes, fence lines, money. Everyone knew they hated each other. I spent weeks studying old court records. Eventually, I discovered that Walter had indeed threatened my father, more than once. For a brief period, I became convinced he was responsible. Then I found proof he had been nearly 20 miles away the night of the fire. Walter was innocent. The second suspect was far more troubling. My uncle Robert, my mother's brother, the man who inherited part of our property after the fire. The financial documents revealed something disturbing. Robert had accumulated significant debts during the months before the tragedy. Afterward, those debts mysteriously disappeared. I thought I had found my answer. Until I discovered the debts had been paid by an unknown source weeks before the fire. Someone had helped him, someone wealthier, someone with reasons of their own. The deeper I dug, the stranger everything became. Then I uncovered something I was never meant to see, a letter written by my father. The paper was brittle with age. The ink faded, but the words remained clear. He had written it 3 months before the fire. In the letter, he described receiving threats, repeated threats. He never named the person responsible. Instead, he wrote, "If anything happens to us, know that I refused to surrender what belongs to my family." I read that sentence dozens of times. What belonged to our family? Land, money, something else? The answer arrived unexpectedly. An elderly woman named Margaret Dawson requested to speak with me. She was 92 years old, blind, nearly deaf. One of the last living people who remembered my parents. When I mentioned my father's letter, she became silent. Then she whispered something that changed everything. "Your father found it." "Found what?" "The gold." At first, I thought she was confused. The senility, perhaps, but her story remained consistent. According to Margaret, my grandfather had hidden a substantial quantity of gold coins during the financial panic of the 1830s. Almost nobody knew. Not even most family members. The treasure vanished after his death. Years later, my father supposedly discovered clues leading to its location. Suddenly, everything made sense. The threats, the disputes, the secrecy. People had not been fighting over land. They had been fighting over money, a fortune. I felt closer to the truth than ever before. Then another mystery emerged. If someone killed my family for gold, why was nothing ever found? Why did nobody suddenly become wealthy? The answer arrived 1 year later, in another letter, this one signed. The name nearly stopped my heart. Thomas Reed. I had never heard it before, yet the letter claimed he was my half-brother. According to Thomas, my father survived the fire. I read those words over and over. Survived. My father survived. The claim seemed impossible, absurd, cruel. And yet Thomas included details nobody else could have known. The descriptions of family objects, stories from my childhood, even the exact words carved inside my father's pocket watch. Information only my father could have shared. The letter explained that my father escaped through a rear window after becoming separated from the rest of the family. By the time he reached safety, the house was fully engulfed. He believed everyone else dead. Though then came the part that shattered me. He never returned. Not because he didn't care, because he was convinced authorities would accuse him. He knew about the threats. He feared becoming the prime suspect. So he fled west, eventually remarrying under a different name, building a different life, a different family, including Thomas. My first reaction was rage, a pure rage. How could he abandon me? How could he spend decades believing I was dead without searching? Then I learned the cruelest detail of all. He had searched for years, but false reports convinced him I had perished alongside the others. just as false reports convinced me he had died. Two survivors, each believing the other lost, separated by mistakes and time. My father died in 1897, 21 years before I learned the truth. I had missed him by a lifetime. Yet the greatest mystery remained unanswered. Who started the fire? And who locked the doors? The answer came from Thomas's final letter, a confession discovered among my father's belongings, written shortly before his death. My father's handwriting, my father's words, my father's guilt. According to the confession, he had finally uncovered the truth years after the fire. The person responsible was neither neighbor nor relative. It was his business partner, a man named Edwin Mercer, the same wealthy man who had secretly paid Uncle Robert's debts. Mercer believed my father had discovered the hidden gold. He became obsessed with obtaining it. Threats escalated. Arguments intensified. Then came the night of the fire. Mercer hired two men. Their instructions were simple. Lock the doors. Set the blaze. Make it appear accidental. The goal was intimidation, not mass murder, at least according to the confession. But fires do not obey plans. The flames spread faster than expected. My family became trapped. Mercer spent the remainder of his life denying involvement. No charges were ever filed. No justice ever arrived. And perhaps that should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. Because the final page of my father's confession contained a revelation more painful than everything before it. He had found the gold, not before the fire, after, hidden beneath an old stone marker exactly where his father had concealed it. He used part of it to build his new life. The rest remained untouched. Do you know what mattered most when I read those words? Not the treasure, not the crime, not even the identity of the killer. It was a single realization. My family had died for something that ultimately changed nothing. The gold never brought happiness. The greed never brought satisfaction. The murders never brought reward. Only suffering, only loss, only ghosts. So today I am 82 years old. People often ask whether learning the truth brought peace. The answer is complicated. Some wounds heal. Others simply stop bleeding. I no longer wonder who locked the doors. I no longer wonder whether the fire was an accident. I no longer wonder why my father disappeared. Those questions finally have answers. But another question remains. One that always will. What would our lives have been if that night had never happened? Would Clara have married? Would Samuel have become a carpenter like our father? Would my mother have lived long enough to meet grandchildren? Would we have spent decades together instead of becoming memories? No confession can answer those questions. No investigation can solve them. They belong to a life that was stolen. And perhaps that is the true tragedy. Not that my family died, but that they never had the chance to live. If there is one lesson hidden within this story, it is this: a mystery can consume a lifetime. I spent 63 years searching for answers. When they finally arrived, they could not return a single person I loved. Truth matters, but time matters more. And if you still have the people you love, tell them. Today, not tomorrow, not next year, today. Because one ordinary night can become the dividing line between everything you had and everything you lost. I know. I have been standing on that line for 70 years.